They say there used to be a town called Cold Hollow, somewhere between Center County and Clinton County, Pennsylvania. But if you try to find it on a map today, you won't. The coordinates that once marked it now show only forest and a road that ends abruptly in the middle of nowhere. Cold Hollow wasn't big, just a mining town built in the late 1800s around a coal vein that burned hotter and deeper than anyone expected. By the 1970s, it was mostly forgotten: a gas station, a church, 12 houses, and a single school building that doubled as a town hall. Locals said it was quiet, too quiet. The story goes that in October of 1974, an underground fire similar to the one that destroyed nearby Centralia reached the old mine beneath Cold Hollow. At least, that's what the official report said. But the report was incomplete. It listed no casualties, no names, no evacuation order. Just one final line: town rendered uninhabitable, site closed. In the months that followed, every record mentioning Cold Hollow quietly disappeared. The post office stopped receiving mail. The road signs were replaced. Even the census data from that year skips the coordinates entirely, as if the town had never existed. But a few people still remember, people who drove through that valley before it was sealed off. They say the air smelled like burnt metal, and that at night, the lights of Cold Hollow could still be seen flickering beneath the trees. The government called it a containment zone. The locals called it a burial. This is what remains of Cold Hollow, Pennsylvania. Most official records of Cold Hollow end around late September 1974. There's a weather report archived in the Pennsylvania Bureau of Mines that mentions unusual ground temperatures in the area 80 degrees Celsius, measured just 2 feet below the surface. That report was never followed by an investigation. The last postmark from the town's only mailbox is dated October 9th. It was addressed to a woman named Mary Ann Kohler, who had left the town 2 years earlier. The letter read only, "It's getting worse. The ground hums at night." It was signed by her brother, David, a maintenance worker at the mine. David Kohler was never found.
I tried to leave through Route 322, but the road just stopped. It wasn't blocked. It just wasn't there anymore. No signs, no lights, just black.
That audio was found in a box labeled Cold Hollow Incident, recovered in 1981 from the basement of a decommissioned state office recently in Harrisburg. No one knows who recorded it or why it was hidden. Locals from the nearby town of Beech Creek say they remember the smoke. Not black, like from a fire, but grayish, metallic, heavy. It didn't rise. It sank. And when it did, animals began disappearing from nearby farms. Dogs, cattle, even deer. Hunters who entered the forest after dusk never stayed long. They said the forest moved. Within 3 weeks, Cold Hollow vanished completely from local maps. Its zip code was reassigned. The school's registration records were replaced with blanks. And when journalists tried to access county land deeds, they found a simple note taped to the cabinet. No such property. Some people believed the fire explanation. Others said the town wasn't consumed, it was swallowed. And yet, every October, travelers on Route 322 still report a faint glow through the trees, like lights from houses that shouldn't be there. That's all the records show. But the truth begins where the paper trail ends. On the night of October 12th, 1974, the people of Cold Hollow went to bed like any other Saturday. The town was quiet. The last bus had passed hours earlier, and the mine's generators still hummed under the ground. According to nearby residents in Beach Creek, a faint smell of burning oil drifted through the valley that night, thick and metallic, like overheated machinery. At 2:17 a.m., the power grid for Clinton County registered a brief but massive surge enough to trip 2 substations simultaneously. The source was traced to a line feeding directly into Cold Hollow. Then, silence. No more electricity. No more signal. It was a fragment of a window frame, fused to something organic. When analyzed later at the lab, the carbon content suggested it had once been wood, but the molecular structure was crystalline, like quartz. The report was quietly archived, and Dr. Rourke never spoke publicly again. A local historian, Thomas Lowe, managed to access the preliminary drafts of that report before they were sealed. He published them in an independent newsletter in 1983. The article mentioned one detail omitted from the final version: an audio cassette found half buried in the soil near the old church site. On it, a woman's voice whispered a phrase over and over: "We are still here." The tape was only 20 seconds long, but when slowed down, a second voice can be heard repeating the same words slightly out of sync, like an echo coming from below. After the discovery, the area was fenced off again, this time by the Federal Environmental Agency, officially for safety reasons, unofficially because the recordings continued. Each autumn, new signals appeared on the same radio frequency used by Cold Hollow's emergency system. Today, the coordinates still exist, but no GPS recognizes them. The forest has grown back, swallowing the valley completely. But every few years, hikers claim to find pieces of melted glass shaped like doors, or road signs half buried under moss, with letters barely legible. "Welcome to Coal," and nothing more. Cold Hollow, they say, never burned it, simply rewrote itself out of existence. In 1992, nearly 2 decades after Cold Hollow vanished, a new topographic survey of Pennsylvania was released. It was supposed to include updated satellite imagery and revised coordinates for every township. Yet, between Beach Creek and Mill Hall, there's a blank stretch of forest perfectly square, about 6 miles wide, where no elevation data exists. Researchers who examined the digital file noticed something else. The pixels forming that empty space were slightly darker than the rest of the map, as if a faint shadow had been printed over the land itself. When technicians tried to correct the image, the software froze. Every attempt to export the file failed. The section was later replaced with a generic patch of forest texture, and the omission was never mentioned publicly. In 2004, a student from Penn State discovered a forgotten drawer in the university's geography department. Inside was an original map from 1973, drawn a year before the disappearance. It clearly showed Cold Hollow marked with its old zip code, 16877. When he scanned it to compare it with modern data, something unexpected appeared. The scanner registered a watermark invisible to the naked eye, a thin circular pattern etched across the paper, resembling the same concentric rings described by Dr. Rourke's team. The student posted the finding online. The image went viral for a few hours before being deleted. Accounts discussing it were suspended without explanation. A week later, someone mailed him an envelope with no return address. Inside was a single photograph, a road disappearing into mist, and a wooden sign half buried in mud. Only 2 words were visible: Cold Hollow. To this day, no one knows who sent it. The photograph remains unverified, but its timestamp reads October 12, 1974. If you open a digital map and zoom in on that blank area between Center and Clinton County, the screen flickers for a second. The more you zoom, the darker it becomes until the forest turns to static. Then, just before the app closes, a red dot flashes at the center of the screen, one pulse like a heartbeat. Cold Hollow, Pennsylvania, the town that erased itself from the map. Some places vanish because we forget them. Others disappear because something else remembers. If this story reached you, if something inside you felt that chill while listening, then you already know some towns never die. They just wait to be remembered. Subscribe to the Horror States for more true American horror stories, lost towns, and dark folklore hidden across the country. Leave a like if you want us to uncover the next place that vanished. And remember, every map has a blank spot for a reason.